All right, we're live with Matt Layman. This is Lunch with Lumbermen, MX Broadcasting Channel, part of the MX Network Materials Exchange. We're the only digital B2B e-commerce platform, the way to buy and sell lumber digitally. Matt and I do this every Thursday at 12 o'clock noon. We have quite a following now, Matt. I get all kinds of text, emails, calls at night talking about, hey, love what you guys talked about yesterday, or hey, hated what you guys talked about, which I'm good either way because, hey, I don't want to be a zebra. I want to have that bright red spot painted on me, right? Because there's no fun being in the herd. So we love.
It's something that's interesting too is when usually when I say something that pisses somebody off, it's because I don't agree with something that they have a position, and I'd say something that's contrary to it. But the whole idea isn't to make you wrong; it's just to make you think. Like, did you think about this other scenario?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so, like, Matt, what we like to talk about is we're inclusive here. We want everybody involved. We think information should be more transparent, and that's what we really like. I mean, Matt Beamer, Greg Riley, and I had a great conversation yesterday, and we talked a lot about these mills when they give these announcements that come out through 7 different people through emails and are really ambiguous about what is actually going on. Oh, real quick, everybody, please, thanks, Jory, and thanks, Sean Higgins. If you put up the name of where you're from and your location, it would be great. We had people on from France yesterday, from Brazil on yesterday, from Sweden on yesterday, from all the states. I don't think we had Hawaii and Alaska yet, but we're working on that one. And our views afterwards are amazing. I mean, we're having thousands of views, all kinds of comments after. So kind of blessed and grateful for what we're able to achieve here in transparency. But one of the big things we touched on yesterday, Matt, and maybe this is the way we'll start it, is we asked the question, has anybody actually seen a real announcement from the mill that made curtailments last week that made the market run all over the place? And everybody said, well, yeah, I got one from a friend of a friend of a friend. But nobody had actually got an official one. So last night, I think an official thing came out. And if I read it correctly, and again, this is just me, they said, yes, we're taking off 5 to 10% in Q3, which Q3 is almost over with. Right. And that's fine. But what the email going around last week was from a bunch of traders to other traders was 30% coming off. So again, I don't know the details, but to me that it didn't make sense when I heard about it, and people forwarded me emails from that had a chain that they had got this information from, and it's so anyway. I'm grateful that all that information came out in an official format yesterday. It certainly helps people make wiser, better decisions. And I saw an official. Did you see one come out, Matt, on that?
Yeah, I did, and it was very ambiguous, and it certainly was not what the market was looking for in detail of enough to spook the market. All it basically says is we've already done curtailments for the last 10 weeks. We're going to do curtailments for another 3 weeks, and then we'll kind of it didn't say what they were going to do after that. It also mentioned that they had 5 or 10% curtailment at their OSB mills and their Southern Pine mills, which they haven't said anything about. But it really didn't make any difference when you figure that they've as an industry, or for Canada, they've increased their production this year, or shipments this year, by 10% anyway. So really, that's not a solution to a problem.
And look, I get it on all these mills are having a tough time navigating. As Matt, Greg, and I said, hey, look at all these consolidations and contracts. From the mill's perspective, they're all based on what these big 800-pound gorillas that have all these contracts have these commitments, and all of a sudden they call them one day and say, we're not taking anything, right? So they have a hard time planning. So I understand on the mill side how it's hard to navigate that. But the one thing I've always it's always been tough for me to understand in this industry is how people just listen to one person without actually going and doing some research and finding out what really happened. Like last week, it seemed like, hey, I heard this. Woo, we're off to the races, right? But nobody actually dug down in and figured out what's going on. And all of a sudden people are like, we're all long now and everybody should buy because the bottom's in.
It's like, it was interesting how the buzzword was the bottom's in. Like,
Yeah, is it? I don't
guys,
know. I'm not smart enough to know that,
yeah,
right?
the guys that went on record the week before saying they weren't going to buy anything until they got rid of their inventory, all of a sudden the bottom's in. So, what does the bottom's in mean for you? Okay,
Yeah.
the bottom's in doesn't mean I'm going to go buy a bunch of lumber. It's just like, it's nice to know I won't be losing any more on the value of my inventory.
So crazy. Well, we're just talking about market here. You as a ex trader and as an individual, you hear an announcement like that last week from a whole bunch of people calling around saying that something's happening. You right away want to find out what's going on. And so, the last few days I've called people, big buyers that I know, Texas and other places. There's some people, but for the most part, people are still moving inventory around in different locations that they still have, trying to make stuff work.
Yeah.
And I had one guy tell me he hasn't put out an open market PO since the second week of July and still hasn't. Now, that's one person, but there's still inventory that's getting worked through. I think there are some good values out there. And this one person said that they're still having a hard time getting some of the other products besides lumber to get out to these jobs, right?
Yeah, that's the problem for the market right now. One of the things we told you I want to talk about was the inventory shift, and the thing that moves the market is
Let's talk about that, the shift in price movement that you talked to me on that email about.
Yeah, so if you think about the market as just a giant pendulum that swings back and forth, and that pendulum is inventory. When inventory gets heavy to the mill side, you can assume that inventory is light on the buyer side and the market is underbought and it's going to swing back the other way. And vice versa. When it swings to the consumer side and it's real heavy, the mills have a deep order file, then you can make the assumption that if the mills have a big order file, then the buyers have plenty of inventory and they're going to stop buying. It's going to swing back the other way. So we talked about some of that's how lumber brokers or traders play the market. They just get on that momentum of that pendulum swinging and just ride a little bit, get off, ride a little bit, get off, just back and forth. But what the problem right now is the market's got a bottleneck in it from those other than lumber supply chain items like tubs and toilets and you name it, wallboard, gypsum, sheetrock, whatever, every kind of thing that's other than lumber that's got it clogged. And what that's done is made that inventory shift stall. Because the mills are still making lumber and they still have lumber sold to ship, but the dealers inventory isn't moving out fast enough as fast as the mills are making it. So it's just kind of, instead of a pendulum swinging back and forth, it's a pendulum is just like just banging off.
I think one thing that's interesting too. One thing that's interesting too about Matt, maybe this can add to that conversation. Over the last 6 months, as we ran up, people added to their contract business, to their business that is non-spot or non-open market. So they're still getting that right now. If they were historically 30% contract and they're now 50% or higher, that 50% now today that they're still getting in this quarter probably feels a lot more than it did a few months ago. Does that make sense? So
yeah.
People make no mistake. People are still getting wood. They're just taking their contract deliveries in instead of their open market spot I call around and buy every day, right? So that's
right.
So yeah, go ahead, Matt.
I think that's the thing is where the market's gotten bottlenecked here, and while nobody really responded to futures responded $100 in 2 days to the rumor or the expectation there was going to be a 30% curtailment, and 2 days later it didn't happen and it's off $100. So you've got a market right now where I think spruce, Canadian Western SPF spruce is still the bellwether for what the market price is. And you've got futures at $550 and cash is still available at $460.
Yeah, I heard 460 is the Western Mill quote unquote market price now, right?
That's what you get. That's what you get out of Alberta.
So 460 is about the price of Western Mills. What is the November contract at right now?
$592.
Wow.
$150 premium.
So
and what we've got happening between now and November is the typical October sell-off. So you can get excited about. Sure, DIY is coming back a little bit right now in September. You get the September surge for the next round of new builders putting in new starts. So you get a little splurge of just like kids go back to school, everybody's back on the job again. They get a little September's weather's nice, so you get a little bump in September. But typically that September bump is equally as negative in October. It takes all that September away. So the market usually makes a low in August or October, one or the other. And you can't really justify buying a position in August long term for planning for the spring, but in October you can. So whatever that low in October is, and I think it will be certainly lower than wherever September ends up going off the board.
Yeah, I know it's interesting. I'm still just gobsmacked by the amount of basis in there. Everybody outside of the industry, like at these big trading firms, should figure out how to take delivery and sell November about it and just wait and clip that freaking coupon for $100x.
Yeah, I think the thing that makes people hesitant about that is you talk to your customer, you say, "I'm thinking about this. You want to do this basis trade? I can save you $150 and I'll make $50." And they go,
Yeah.
"No, I'm not interested. Still got wood I got to sell."
Yeah. No, that's why we've had interest from people outside of the industry now looking to be on our platform that are literally non-industry players that want to take advantage of those things and just have liquidity on our platform, which makes absolute sense. And people should come in and take advantage of that to put that thing back in check. James Breck, great. To Matt's point, the inventory throughout the builder market is based on completions. So true, James. We've talked about that. The supply constraints on the other product is holding up completions. You're absolutely right. We can look at all the starts and permits we want, James, but we want to look at actual completions because that's where the rubber meets the road. If you want to build 2 million houses, but you can only complete 1.3, that's a big discrepancy, right, Matt? We've talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that back in May when it was before it even started to happen. There's going to come a time when the number of starts just has to sit there because you can't get windows and tubs and appliances. I mean, you just got this. You got these shells, and I've seen houses with Tyvek stuck up on the windows because when there's OSB shortage, because they couldn't do it. There's nothing else they could do on the inside till they got the windows. And there's so many things that are just getting more and more delayed. It doesn't seem like it's getting any better. So regardless of what lumber supply is or what the mills are going to do, that bottleneck of completions is still there. And it's not, I mean, I keep hearing things every day of things that are now 36 weeks out and 16 weeks out. And there are things that you can't, I mean, a builder can't sit there and just, I guess you can't close the house and say, well, I'm going to close the house, but you got everything but your tub and your appliances. We'll come back and catch that later.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, sales of houses are still great. I know in my little pig farm I live in, my little neck of the woods, you can't even if a real estate sign goes up in a front yard, it generally means the house is already sold. That's just an advertisement for a real estate agent at that point, right? There's all these closed markets that you got to call your real estate broker to actually see open houses because they're not even on the MLS listings anymore. I mean, it's great. So business is still really good, and I think everybody right now is trying to justify in their mind, well, business is really good. Why shouldn't lumber prices be really high? Well, I mean, we're trying to fit, we're trying to fit this much through this much right now. Eventually that'll open up, but it isn't there right now, right, Matt?
But even when it opens up, there's still a limited amount of completions. We talked about at the very beginning of the year. You look back for 2 years, 3 years, 1.3 completions, 1.3 million completions is kind of the average number that we do. We've managed to push that up a little bit to about 1.4-ish this year, but 1.5 completions is not possible. I haven't talked to a builder yet that says they can complete 1.5 million. They can start 1.7 all they want, but they just don't have the capacity for getting the paint, the wallpaper, or the flooring, or everything else that comes after the framing. That process has gotten delayed by about 2 months. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be hard pressed to get 1.3 million completions by the way we're going right now.
So I see Tim Hansen. I have interest in doing some basis trades, but I'm still a little uncertain how to do it correctly. Tim, I'll see if I can get a hold of you after this and just give you my 2 cents on that. When you're doing cash to futures, it's pretty easy. You just have to have a bunch of money in your trading account, if that makes sense. right? Because you got to be able to withstand these big basis moves.
Yeah, and a place to
Right.
put the wood. You got to have the
And a place
ability
to
to
put the
put
wood.
the wood.
Yeah, no. Here's a great point, Matt. Talking to a person yesterday, and it was really interesting. I'm like, hey, they're looking at stuff on our platform. They're like, I like this, this, and this, but the 3 locations I normally buy this to are full, and I can't put any wood into them till October 1st if they even allow me. And I'm like, really? And this is a multifamily buyer that traditionally used to take job site delivery, but
Yeah.
actually has now. And again, we've talked about this, but this is that phantom inventory that's out there where people that are non-traditional buyers of lumber that used to buy it, directly ship to the job sites are still doing that, but they also decided, hey, I'm going to put a chunk of wood on the ground myself. And I'm starting.
That's something to not forget about as we go into 2022. There's a lot of wood that's already bought in storage in the warehouse for jobs that haven't even broken ground yet. So we're doing the same thing right now that we did back in the first of the year, which was overbuying for starts. And the difference is back then the builder said, just don't let me run out of wood. Price is no object. Now what's happening is the builders themselves, multifamily, particularly multifamily, large multifamily builders are getting storage facilities and just jamming them full of studs and OSB. And I think that's why we got a little pop in OSB for the last couple of weeks. It wasn't because the price was good. It was people that were non-traditional buyers saying, this isn't going to happen to me again next year. Just like the Lowe's said, that treated shortage isn't going to happen to me next year. So they ended up getting enough to kill the market. But
yeah, what a lot of people are saying too is, hey, $20 a sheet certainly looks better than $70 a sheet in here. Maybe I'll take a little bite off of this. So one thing that we've noticed that has started picking up, and again, I don't have any specific stuff except for the mills I talked to and a few other people that are in this. And I think Matt, you've said the home center business went from 0 to taking inventory now again, right? So that's helped a little bit, right? Where there's
but it's still, but think about that. That's helped a little bit, but all it's really helping them do is get rid of a problem that they had created back in May. I mean, it's helping them move some treated lumber, and the reason they're having to come back in for more studs and more OSB now is they jammed it to the mill and canceled the contracts for September and October.
Yep. Greg Kudup said, agree with you, Matt. Completions are the key. Hey, Greg, glad you're here. And Judy Johnson said, coming sooner. What we're seeing for sale signs, realtors get calls and market info before listings. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff going on. And Judy, what I see is we called somebody the other day to look at a house, and it's crazy because every house you look at, it's already sold, but everybody always has other ones that are coming up, right? So we're still in a pretty good spot here in housing from what it feels like. But again, completions are the key to what's going on, because it only matters what you're doing, not what you want to do.
Well, you think about that too. If we have a bottleneck in the completion process, that's going to create a bottleneck in existing home sales, existing home supply as well, because most of those homes that people are sitting in waiting on that are waiting on new homes are in an existing home. They're going to put it on the market when their house gets ready 30 days before it's time to move. So if you get that pushback on the new home completions, we're going to get a thinner supply of existing homes as we go forward too. So we could probably expect that existing homes are going to get tighter. It's interesting how existing home inventories are 2 months, and I don't know how to get this, but new home inventories are 6 months. And I don't know how you come up with a 6-month inventory of new homes when you got a 2-month backlog of just being behind, and that number's kind of skewed. It's kind of screwy to me.
Yeah, I mean those numbers. There's a couple sites out there that maybe we can get those better on. Hey, anybody wants to put comments over there? Judy, yeah, exactly. Realtors won't show more than 1 or 2 in the neighborhood. I'm going to bring up Matt your 2x4 composite, so we can take a look at that. And I'm going to bring up the one from this weekend to show kind of, or the one, not the most recent, but the one to kind of show what's going on there. Like the composite, the 2x4 composite. Let's just take a look at that real quick, Matt.
The Western spruce?
It'll be the first page, 2x4, first page.
I'm on the wrong. Okay, got it.
Either one, first page of either one, Mike.
Yep, we'll bring it up right now. Check it out. And I was going to tell James Brecht, I'm just going to tell James Brecht, I'm working on keeping my biases in check here. I saw it. I appreciate that comment yesterday. Okay, 12-month forecast, Matt. This is your two by four number two composite. Anything we're noticing here? We're kind of just.
Well, I think if you look at that little cluster of where the blue line gets kind of jumbled at the bottom, that's the market that we right at that week number 20 or 31, where we expected the market to reverse. Something did happen in the market. The market was in a spot where it attempted to make a reversal and go higher. But what we found out there was that, like we talked about, the shadow inventory, but the biggest thing was the bottleneck of other than lumber products that just kept the market from rallying into in making a November push up. August push up higher. But I still don't see any reason why we're not going to get a downturn at like week number 38. That's 2 weeks from now. Why the market won't turn lower, because it's clearly not able to get enough legs to get going higher. There's the buyers are doing all they can do. They're buying now. They've got rid of a lot of their inexpensive lumber. So what they're doing is buying to fill in with less expensive lumber as they need it. But the problem is they just don't need it quick enough. And unless you see some kind of remedy in the bottleneck of the tubs and appliances and those kinds of things to get the completions done, this bottleneck of lumber or slow congestion of lumber to the job sites is going to continue regardless of what the mills do. I mean, the mills are not going to stop making lumber and just completely shut down because we got a temporary bottleneck and things. And
this is a good question, Matt. I had a big national publication call me this morning and ask me a question for a comment of, and it should be out if they. And here's the thing: is whenever I don't have a long or short position, so I can give them what I see in the market. I'm not doing it from a position of I don't have any axe to grind on it, right? And the question was, is the market starting to see price? Is the retail market now starting to see, or the buyer, the end use buyers pricing? Have they seen all the pricing relief built in on the wholesale and mill side? I'm like, no. It kind of depends, right? I mean, some of them haven't, and some of them have. Have they seen lower prices? Certainly. Well, the way I answered it is people that went out and have now shopped and looked at more options have probably found better pricing, or people like on our platform that have gone out and tried to get farther down the chain have found some deals, right? But it probably isn't 100% built in yet, would you? And it never really ever is it?
No, it can't be. I mean, you think about it, if you had 6 weeks, 8 weeks worth of inventory and the market fell in 3 or 4 weeks, you've still got some of that in there, some of that built in.
Yeah.
But it's a feathering kind of thing. So I still think that if you look at that graph there, that week number 45, where the green line is in the low in October, that's probably going to be the best time for the cycle of the year where you're going to see that average low price around that time. So I think one of the good things that's kind of one of the obvious overlook that we're not really talking about is the repair and remodel market, because that market just went silent when all of a sudden OSB was $70 a sheet and studs were $20 a piece. Everybody just said, that's enough. I'm not going to do it. And that's more than 50% of the lumber usage market is repair and remodel. And that's just thousands of onesie twosie kind of things that it's hard to get a bead on. But it's going to be one of those things that I think dealers are just going to see their inventory just get kind of picked through a little bit.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's starting to come back a little bit, but like to the extent of what it was at its peak over the last 6 months, it's yet to be determined yet. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, those people that do repair and remodel are the last ones to know the price. Some of them don't even know prices dropped in some cases. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy to say that, but I've talked to people in the last week that asked me if plywood is still $70 a sheet, and these are people that generally
guys they're standing in the checkout line at Home Depot and Lowe's.
Yeah, exactly. So,
another thing to keep in mind too is that when nobody's talking about this a whole lot either, but COVID is getting to be a factor again with just a number of people that are laying out of work. They just over the weekend they just get sick. I heard this week that one company lost 45 employees for the week. I mean, somebody got exposed. They had to all quarantine. 95% of the employees were not vaccinated, so they all had to quarantine for 2 weeks. And it's just, when those kind of things happen, I remember last summer when Mills would say, like, yeah, we lost 2 weeks, but we didn't tell anybody about it. And it's almost like the scarlet letter. We don't want anybody to think they're going to catch COVID from buying our lumber, so they just don't tell anybody.
Yeah, no doubt, and I know you've talked with that with some of your exclusive group that you have on Thursdays, Matt, and they've talked about their trials and tribulations with that, which is a really good conversation. I brought up the OSB chart. Now, I think OSB probably is printed up the last few weeks, so it's found, but it's kind of like bouncing along this lower trading range right now, and I guess that's one of those markets out there that really is controlled by 5 or 6 mills. So that's a hard one to really figure out. That's more of a secondary market sets the cash price on that, is from what we've noticed, right? And we see a lot more of that secondary market.
And if you look back in historically, when OSB makes a bottom, it takes months to get off a bottom.
Yeah.
When it gets down there, it can stay for literally. I remember it seems like when it got down under $150 or under $200, you thought, well, that's cheap. Everybody's going to buy it. It stayed down there for weeks on end before it got a chance to come back up. And if you look at just the trend of that black line there, the FTP line shows that from week number 35 to week number 48, I think, that's basically a flat market. It's granted it's higher than where we are right now, but that's just because of those recent high prices for the last couple of years. But OSB is at $400. OSB is not a bargain. It's better, certainly better than $1,200 and $1,300, but kind of historically, $250 is a good place to buy OSB. And the premium 23/32 underlayment premium is way too high compared to the thinner panel. So I think there's some meat that's going to come out of the 23/32 market. And I think James just said something about going off the market in Canada, trying to desperately build a price on an order file.
Yeah.
Well, going off the market and just not having it doesn't make the problem go away. It really acknowledges that they're going off the market because they just don't like the price and holding it. That doesn't mean they're not making it. They're still going to pile up.
So this is anything in life in commodity companies that produce. I have never understood, and if I ran a company that was a production company, I would never be off the market on anything ever. That is just, to me, like going off the market is meant to create some kind of emotional reaction on the other side. As a buyer, I would say, or as a seller, I'd be like, there's always a price I should be selling my product for. And I would never be off the market on anything. That's just my own personal opinion, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, if you got somebody willing to buy it for, how many times in your lifetime have somebody wanted to ask for price protection for a year? And I mean, it happens all the time. Everybody would like to get that, but you assume that you're going to get it at a reasonable price. But I've never seen a producer in my lifetime give price protection for a year at a.
Well, instead of going off the market, if I did, I would ask people to ask different questions. Like, let's not go off the market. Let's find out what we can sell at in a different way, or what people will pay, like you said, to get a great return for farther out, right? I mean, but just going off the market to me seems like the boy that cried wolf at this point, right? I mean, I think people don't.
And usually going off the market is a response to something that's kind of tragic and sudden.
Yeah, no doubt. And that happens in some cases. So COVID is hitting trades bad. Thomas said here, most of our vendors subs have multiple people out at any given time currently, which is contributing to the completion bottleneck from a labor constraint side rather than a material constraint. Thomas, great point. Never thought about that, man.
Just add that to the list.
That's another one. Add to the list. And look, this is why this program is so great, because guys like Thomas come in and give us. I never really thought about that. All of a sudden, if you get job sites shut down, you can't make that up. You just have to jump back in, right? And that hurts completions also. Great point. Let's since we're getting up against this half an hour, let's go to the framing composite real quick, Matt, to kind of finish off the charts we're looking at, and we'll talk about that. So the framing package index. what are we seeing on here? I love that chart, bar chart, kind of showing where we came, where we're at now. So obviously, people locking in prices. Are people locking in prices here now for Q4 these numbers?
Builders would like to, but they still have a difficult time because the dealers, lumber dealers, are having a real uncertainty about, well, what's going to be. Are we going to have another knee-jerk thing? Do I have the opportunity? Am I at risk for another $1,000 run on lumber? And there's just so much uncertainty, and the LBM dealers have kind of gotten the builders back into a track of like, let's just stick with 30 days where it's safe for everybody. Yeah, but the builders that I've talked to would love to start getting some 90-day lumber locks in, but the dealers can't do that with so many constraints on other thing, not knowing how lumber's gonna
So Matt, your guys you talk to, your guys and gals you talk to, they're pretty smart. I assume that we're back to 90-day locks now. Are we still at 30 days?
No, they can't get them. They'd like to have them, but they can't get them.
Why aren't they doing 30? Why aren't they doing 90 days? Why aren't sellers selling?
Dealers won't give it. The lumber supply won't give it to them.
Okay.
We just look at what we just come off of, these rocket high prices and rocketing down prices, and now this is the perfect time of year to get longer lumber locks, but it's a horrible time to give it because the price, the most sustained uptrend in the market is from October to March.
Yeah.
You can almost kind of bet on that. So if you're locking in 90 days worth of lumber locks right anytime between now and the end of the year, it's in your favor that you're going to come out ahead. It's more against the giver of the lock than it is the getter of the lock.
James was asking Matt you a question. Are we seeing any relief in the EWP constraints recently? I mean, that's been an ongoing conversation. I thought there was relief a couple months ago, but it sounds like that's still a sticky wicket.
It is, and rim board is as difficult as anything. I've heard more people ask about rim board than they are for the EWP, just something to wrap it in, because you still got 2x12s. If you're going to use those, you still want to wrap it with something. But I have heard that the problem is getting better, that it's not causing the delays, but there's certainly no abundance of it yet. But I think the delay portion of it is getting better.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of going to wrap it. Oh, Euro, Euro continues to come over here. Matt was saying, a few other people yesterday, that it's becoming harder to deal with the congestion at ports and everything involved with that. But it sounds like there is still a lot of Euro sitting on the docks. Whether it's sold or not, I don't know, but it sounds like there's quite a bit of Euro still sitting around, and there probably always will be until something changes, because it's still coming over on vessels. But, kind of wrap it up. It was the market's kind of going into, September is expiring next week, right, Mike?
Yeah.
15th.
The 15th. We've got a big spread between the cash and the futures market, which most people just deal in cash every day. Just what that means is there's probably going to be a lot of volatility going into this expiration, because somehow that thing is going to have to remedy itself to have some kind of convergence, right?
The question you have to ask yourself is, based on what you're seeing today for offerings and the momentum of the market, you think cash is going to go up $100 or futures are going to come down $100, or is it going to go 50-50? But either way, the lack of momentum in the market, urgency, and I just have a hard time seeing that it's going to go.
I mean, whenever I see spreads this wide, I always think to myself, somebody smarter than me or in the know knows something that I do not know, and that's what
they do,
or they think they do, and that's what this spread has showed twice before. I remember leaving the office one day and saying to Mike, "The spread's too wide. Something's going to come out," and then you see an announcement come out in a mill. So something's going to come out of left field or right field, whatever field that you're the weak arm in, and it's going to be some kind of announcement. You're going to be like, I didn't see that coming, or something's going to happen. I don't know, but somehow that spread's wide and something has to be remedied.
I'll tell you something I've been watching lately is like, how does futures trade on the day before print comes out, or the day that print comes out? If it's been a big hard up day, big strong up day, then print tends to be up 40, 50, 60, $100. If it's going to be down, then print's going to be down that way. right now the futures market is trading within a $4 or $5 range. So I kind of feel the print's going to come out with kind of a nothing that's going to be helpful one way or the other. It's just going to be kind of a neutral.
I think Sean put something up here, Higgins, before we did this, but what the open interest is in lumber, there's just less and less people.
At 2,500, 2,500 is normal.
1900.
It's 1,800 now? 1,900 now, Mike just said.
Yeah.
So to me,
Sean was saying 2,500 was ridiculous, but it's even more ridiculous now. It's just
something needs to be done with that, because when we're seeing, I know people are wondering what's up with that, right? But we talked about this consolidation. There's less and less people trading it. When all these companies get accumulated, there always used to be these little guys that were at these companies that did futures, and now they get put in this great big umbrella. People retire. I wondered how much interest there still is to trade some of this stuff, especially when it's a market that's a diminishing fiber that the thing's based off of, and there's bigger contracts that could be maybe written on different species, right? Just a thought.
Yeah, well, if it was more affordable, if you could do it in truckload quantities rather than carload quantities, because the first thing you think, either you're playing speculatively if you don't have a rail siding, because you can't take delivery most of the time. So, but when you've got $60, $1,000 ranges, either up or down, the lumber that contract can change $130 in a day, and it can do it back and forth, up $130, down $130, just swinging from day to day, and nobody can take that kind of risk. $13,000 a contract for just one day's worth of swing, and it is. I mean, watched it yesterday. It was almost like $100 1,000 swing. It's just the pucker factor just isn't really worth the effort sometimes.
Well, stay tuned for materialsexchange.com. We're going to be creating more transparency farther out in the curve. So that should be something that people should be looking forward to seeing. James brought up, too, LBM dealers are struggling with their working capital being underwater on inventories. Yeah, great point, James. That's probably certainly a factor where we all sit here like me and say, hey, that's a good buying opportunity, but people have already deployed so much capital and are managing that it's always hard to keep putting more on. Does that make sense, Matt?
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else I've heard just in the last couple of weeks is builders going belly up. Custom builders going belly up and holding the bag for $350,000 or $250,000. It doesn't take many of those to get a small lumber yard or trust plant in trouble. So you guys be real careful about your accounts receivable, and don't let things get beyond 30 days.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That makes sense. I haven't heard anything like that, but whenever you see big moves like this, the question everybody always asks behind the scenes in every industry is, who's going to be the person that something happens to, right? And we haven't seen a lot of that yet, so it'll be interesting. We've seen a few things, but anyway, we're up against 40 minutes, Matt, but it was great. We had a lot of viewers. Like, look at there. I appreciate everything, and you basically all your users now are on your new platform, right? Getting the information on your new platform. Contact Matt Layman, Layman's Lumber Guide, and Matt, great report, great information you're sending out. If you want to be on materialsexchange.com, it's mxlumber.com. Hit the register button. We will get you on buying and selling. There's no fee to be on our platform. It's just a flat fee of $100 per truck to buy, $100 to sell. We don't do terms. So if you're selling, it's $100. You don't have to pay a whole trading floor to move one of your products. It's a great deal. Matt, you got anything to close it out with?
I appreciate you guys just coming and being supportive of it too. It keeps us energized and have to be thought provoking about things to bring up. So it's good. It's good for us to be able to know that we got to come up with something pertinent every week too. So it's very helpful.
Absolutely. Hey, if there's anything that you want us to talk about differently, James, Judy, Greg, anybody, let us know. Send us an email and we'll bring it up and we will talk about it. And we may not know what the hell we're actually talking about in some cases, but we'll certainly make it sound really good.
It's going to sound really informative.
All right, everybody. Have a great end of the week.
Thanks for coming, guys.
Yep, you bet.